Hello, all, and welcome to episode 5 of the official Icons of Fright podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galuzzo. I'm joined by the other co-creator of Icons of Fright, Mike Cucinato. Welcome.
Hello and welcome back. And if you've stuck around this long, thank you for continuing to listen.
Also with us is Jason Alvino.
How you doing? Welcome back.
Yes, with the slowest internet of us all. And Adam Barnick.
Oh no. Did it
No, you're just being nostalgic. We're talking about 2010 and you have internet from 2010.
That's exactly. That's
wait,
we're doing this on
like-
purpose.
We need you to cut in that dial-up sound.
Broadcasting.
It's saying it's unstable. I don't know why it's always does this.
Jay, you're an unstable
Broadcasting
guy.
live from the real player.
He's logged into his AOL account. Just like when we started Icons.
Does anyone have
That's
another
all right.
disc?
That's all right. No, let's keep this all in. I like this.
Okay, yeah.
So sorry, but
Please mail your old startup discs to, and Jay's address will get cut in here.
Yes,
got,
go
like-
find the GeoSites version of Icons of Fright and whatever else you can say to the 5 people that know any of these references. We are here because we have a new book, Icons of Fright,
Icons of
100
Fright.
interviews with legendary horror filmmakers, which is out now. And the purpose of this podcast is to not only talk about the interviews and the things that you'll find in this book, but to contextualize a little bit because there's a lot of stuff we couldn't put in there. There's a lot of wacky behind the scenes stories. And we're kind of at I don't even want to say the tail end, but the tail end of the book, but the transitional period of not just Icons of Fright, but kind of where the horror websites were turning into like 2010 in that era, because there was a lot of changes that even now to this day, social media is a big part of it, that kind of skewed how the horror websites operate and how you get your information out. A lot of what we did on Icons you can't do today. It doesn't really exist, the long form interviews and things like that. I guess now they would be considered podcasts or YouTube shows. That's the evolution of it. But I wanted quickly to just wrap up 2008. That's where we left off before. And there were 2 interviews I wanted to mention. The first is that Mike and I got to talk to Bruce Campbell. And that was a joy. It was for the film he directed, which I'm now drawing a
Call me
blank on.
Bruce.
My name is Bruce.
My name is Bruce.
Is
They
that
call
the
me-
one
My
where
name is Bruce.
he plays himself, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said they
Yeah.
call me Bruce.
They call me
They call me Bruce.
That's a different
Yeah,
throwback.
that's a different movie.
Alvino.
You know what it was? I just had a vague memory. I don't know if Mike was with me, but I mean, bless Bruce, because he was the only horror guy that was doing this at the time. But I remember his previous film, the Man with the Screaming Brain, which I think was his first movie he directed, but he toured that. That didn't come out like everywhere at the same time.
Right.
So I remember
Right.
going to the Angelica Theater in Manhattan to
Right.
see him show the movie. And that, and I guess now somebody like Kevin Smith still does that, where
Yes.
it just makes more sense for them to take themselves with the movie, because you'll have sellout crowds no matter what. Whereas you blast it out to 100 theaters at once, you'll have empty theaters, unfortunately. But what I remember about Bruce, well, we were both on the phone with him and we were very giddy.
Yes.
You and I had just met Adrian King, who apparently is his neighbor. And we brought up that, Adrian King speaks very highly of you. And he's like, well, she's an actress, gentlemen. So, he was just like, again, I think for us, anytime we got to a legitimate icon of Fright, whether it would be him or Jeffrey Combs or whoever, it was kind of cause for celebration. And it kind of was one of the things that stood out about the site. So Bruce Campbell's interview in the book is a lot of fun to read. Yes, we of course harass him about Evil Dead 4. Who knew that Ash vs. Evil Dead was on the horizon? But yeah, fun stuff. And
Rob, didn't we at some point start an internet rumor that I forget his name.
Dude, you're totally right. This is worth mentioning, because it was kind of, I mean, now anybody could do it, but at that era, we were either doing.
I just saw the guy last night in a road trip.
Sean William Scott.
John
Is
William
that his
Scott.
name? The guy that
Yes.
played Stifler.
Yes, yes, yes.
But my memory is that Jay was dead serious that you thought he'd be a good Ash. You're like,
That's
hey,
right.
hey, dude, we should put the word out that he's going to be Ash now. And I don't know what I don't even know if Twitter was a thing yet, but we had definitely put the feelers out there. And then when names would go around, because they were like, oh, they're going to make Evil Dead. The other one was Ashton Kutcher, which might have been a Mike C joke.
Yes.
But somehow a lot of those early Ash remake predictions came from us. I don't know how. We put out into the ether that Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott and all these people might be the new Ash. The irony being there was no Ash in the remake.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make about the Bruce Campbell interview. So this just shows you that we're not journalists and we're not professionals. But Bruce gave us his phone number to call him on for that interview. And I saved it.
Oh yeah.
And every once every 9 months for 2 years, I would just call it to see if it was still, and it went right to his voicemail, and it was Bruce on the voicemail. And then one time I called her. This is maybe 12 years ago. It doesn't work anymore, but but I did save it. It's still in my iPhone. It's Bruce Campbell with that number that he gave us. So because every so often I would be hanging out with somebody. I'd be like, hey, do you want to know something really cool? Do you want to call Bruce Campbell? And we would call, and it would go to his voicemail, and it would be like, hi, it's Bruce. I was like, see, it's calling Bruce Campbell. We really have his phone number. So that's
Rob,
just, no self-respecting, no professional journalist would do that. We're just dumb. We're just a bunch of dumb idiots.
I can imagine you being out, being tipsy, and saying, hey, do you want to call Bruce Campbell?
Somebody to call Bruce. I don't think that might have been how it went, but sure, yeah.
He probably
could make a good old
number. He probably
make a good old school living like
number
that.
eventually. The number stopped working eventually.
Yeah.
But
All Bruce Campbell, 1-900, $3 for the first minute.
Oh yeah, we should have done it that way. Yeah.
Rob, do you remember?
I would call.
Do you remember when we were at Tower? Rob and I used to work together at Tower Records. I forget who it was. I want to say my cousin got his email address, and it was the worst kept secret.
Oh yeah.
Then everyone had his email address.
Well, it was on his website. He had an AOL, and he would answer questions though. He would never reply, but occasionally he would answer it on his website.
I remember it, holy cow, we got Bruce Campbell's email address, and then we would write him these ridiculous emails about Teletubbies, and it was
ridiculous stuff. We did really ridiculous, unprofessional things. But anyway, we're professionals. We have a book.
Oh, absolutely. We're very serious people now.
The other interview I wanted to mention briefly, because there was it was very hard to whittle down to 100, and I went back and forth, not just with the guys here, but with Dustin McNeil, who's our editor for the book. And we kind of skated on it for a while, but I really wanted to include Jeremy Kasten, who a lot of people don't remember, but Jeremy was a hardcore editor on a lot of films around this time period. He was a very wacky guy that looked like, basically, so he directed the Wizard of Gore remake, and he looks like he could be the Wizard of Gore.
Yeah, he does. He looked like a magician. Yeah,
he looked like a magician. Yeah. He was really into. For a while. He lived downtown L.A., and I felt like hanging out with him was like being in a noir movie. And he always hung out with all the Suicide Girls. They were a big part of Wizard of Gore. So I'd never met a character like him, for starters. And it was a fun time, because I remember Tim. It didn't go as far as these two movies, but Tim Sullivan did 2001 Maniacs. Jeremy Kasten did Wizard of Gore, and I thought we were going to get all these Herschel Gordon Lewis remakes, but it only ended up being those two. I think those two would actually be a fun double bill, the remake versions of them. But the reason I love his interview so much is because it's one of the most candid from a filmmaker, really explaining how everything can be great and then not overnight on set. And what I mean by that is, the film got financed and produced. They had all these cool ideas, like getting Crispin Glover to play the lead, getting the Suicide Girls involved, making that kind of the modern Rockettes, a punk rock version of that. and really it was just it was one of the few directors that kind of like Crispin, he didn't tell everything to, because he realized, oh, this is how I handle this guy, is that I can't give him all the information. The same with, I think Bijou Phillips was the lead actress in it.
Mhm.
And it's revealed, spoiler alert for a 15-year-old movie, that she's kind of a prostitute to the lead character in it, the Kip Pardue character. And he says in the interview, he's like, first of all, she would never acknowledge that her character was a prostitute, so I just wouldn't bring it up. Even though clearly that's what it, like, basically I had to hold back information for certain actors that I knew like upset them, that's what the character was. So it's like this fun tightrope of that, but then also, he delivered the movie, and then it's one of those notorious ones that got cut because the producers didn't like his music choices, the gore, any of that stuff. It opens with an incredible song by the Blackheart Procession. It's how I discovered that band, called The Old Kind of Summer. And to this day, regardless of what you think of the film, it's one of my favorite opening scenes to a horror movie ever. It's like the perfect song to kind of the montage of setting up the world. And again, he was saying, he's like, you're on a set shooting a movie for Dimension, and it's like anything you need your clothes pressed, fine, they'll take care of it. He's like, and then it ends with me doing my director's cut in a tiny room with one editor ordering Taco Bell, and that's the end of this journey. Again, I think people glamorize, they don't glamorize it. I think people think, oh, you directed a film that must have been the greatest thing from start to finish, much like they probably glamorize running a website as if we make money or or get any accolades doing this sort of thing. No, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that interview encapsulates that. So I just wanted to mention that briefly. And then as we go into 2009, this is an interesting period for a number of reasons. One, this is when I moved to Los Angeles. Jay moved shortly after, but you were not fully a part of the website at this point anymore, because at this point you were doing Wicked Effects. You were really making it go at that, and writing, if I remember correctly.
Well, at that point, I was actually kind of living and working in LA. I worked for Quantum Creations, and that's when I worked on Tron Legacy and Sucker Punch and stuff like that. I worked in a big special effects shop. I had kind of, Wicked Effects was like an East Coast thing. And then that's around the time, during that time we started, I started getting into the screenwriting thing. And it just felt like, I can't speak for all of us, but it just felt like at the time it was like a natural progression. It was like we were writing about movies and being fans and things we loved and stuff like that. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe this is the step over that line. And in my mind, at least, it was like a divide. It was like, Icons always was fun. You know what I mean? And it was like, I felt like it was time to be like career minded and not have so much fun all the time. But that was definitely like a weird transitional time. And also, like you said, Rob, being East Coasters and moving to California, it was like kind of culture shocky, and it was a big adjustment. It was a big adjustment time.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head on one thing, is that for us, we did this out of sincerity and fun. And then there was a moment, you and I had moved to Los Angeles, but also here's what else was happening in 2008. And Mike, you could fill in the blanks, but now there were a lot of horror sites. So there were the big ones, the Bloody Disgusting. Fangoria is a full-on website now, not just a message board. Dread Central is there. There's all these horror websites. Shock to Drop became a thing by 2009. And now they're all vying for the attention of horror readers, right? Now, we always try to separate ourselves by being long-form interviews, but we kind of had to get into the consistently updating news game because everyone else was
Right.
doing it, and it was the way to maintain and sustain traffic on your website. Now, one of the things that we used, and again, Mike and I didn't know how you sell advertising. Like we didn't know how to do it.
Mhm.
At that moment, there was a service, I believe it was called Gorilla Nation, that just about everybody used. And I guess you signed up for an account for them. They designated space on your website, and
You had to have the traffic to support it. We did have to apply
Yeah.
for it. I had to talk to the guys. It wasn't just like you could sign up for it. You could sign up for Google ads. That was very early.
right.
That
Yeah.
that never paid us much. That made it a couple of bucks a month. Literally a
Yeah.
couple of like $5 a month. And I saw that there were other ads being run by that company, and I thought we had the traffic to support it, and so we pursued it, and it did. Then we started running ads on the website. We started doing old school like website takeovers for certain movies and products. And it earned us a little bit of money. It wasn't like we weren't living off it
No.
all. It's not like that. We just put the money back into the website. We just took a couple, maybe like from like December to January to like September, it would generate maybe like $100-200 a month, if that. October
It was
big.
enough. You know what it was? It was
It was
enough.
enough.
It was enough
supported
to
our
cover
travel.
conventions.
Yeah.
It supported conventions and travels.
All it supported. Yeah.
Which, by the way, we were
Yeah.
never ever guests or press for conventions. We bought tickets as fans.
Right.
Bought
And-
tickets. Yeah.
Table.
Only once. Only
Yeah.
one. The one in Texas.
The Fear Fest one
Fear,
where the
but-
Fright Night
Yeah.
union happened. Yeah. But other than that, we were the ones that we would use whatever money came in from those ads
Yeah.
to cover a hotel room at Monster Mania
Yeah.
for the weekend. And that's all it would do. Then also, so now you have a very competitive market. And I'm just talking about the big sites. There are now hundreds of little sites springing up. Basically, everyone was starting a horror site. And
Mhm.
I have no problem with that. Like that's, it's cool that people are
It's
excited
great.
about it.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, and, forgive me if I'm being harsh, we started it out of sincerity and because we really wanted to talk to these people. And I still went to Best Buy every Tuesday to buy the new releases and all that. I started to notice that people were doing it or starting sites because I was on the other end of it doing Cycle Legacy. And when I did the press for that, they were doing it to get free DVDs because they knew that, if they can get on a press list, they'll get sent this stuff for free and they don't have to buy it. Or maybe they're aspiring filmmakers. And if they get to chat with, Adam Green or Paul Solid or
that was very small. I don't even remember names of any smaller sites like that did that. That was a very brief moment, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what did start to spring up is stuff you mentioned Shock to You Drop, but that didn't spring up organically. There was a big company behind that. There was a media company behind that. So that's where we were starting to see. We used to see companies that created websites starting to come into horror where they hadn't been before.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of that company, but they ran comingsoon.net, which was a more general movie site.
Yeah.
And that
was their horror
that
offshoot.
sprung,
Horror offshoot,
Shock to Drop. Well, and the other thing was that nobody predicted that Twilight, which came out in 2008, would be this pop culture juggernaut. And I know people are like, what are you bringing up Twilight for? Well, because Dread Central and Bloody Disgusting and Fangoria were suddenly covering Twilight. Why? Because it brought traffic to the website. And it was almost like a necessary evil. Now, the reality is, it brought traffic to the website, but it was traffic just for that, it didn't translate into traffic. People didn't suddenly decide to watch, Let the Right One In because they're Twilight fans or whatever.
We should have jumped on that, to be honest. We knew about that before. We knew that was coming.
Yeah.
You who told us about that? Spooky Dan's wife, Tammy.
Yeah.
Right.
She was into the novels. She showed us, and then the next thing I know, 6 months later, that is everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it was really funny because when I had first moved here, again, our friend Tammy was huge into the books, and she told us, she's like, this is going to be one of the hugest things in movies. And I remember very vaguely where we were on the corner here, where in North Hollywood, and this dude in a very big beat up piece of crap car pulls up, and it was Rob Pattinson. And I remember us being like, well, that's not going to last long once this movie comes out. So that was kind of fun. But I think my point about the Twilight thing is it then set for the people like the Coming Soon Nets, the people that own and started offshoots of horror things, it set unrealistic numbers for horror websites, because they're like, well, why can't you keep generating, I don't know, 100,000 hits a month or whatever it was? And it's like, because that's a different audience that's specifically Twilight centric, and we're covering this niche of horror. So I just remember that being a really kind of disturbing thing amongst the horror websites. And I don't even want to say solution. I think Mike and I were also at a point where maybe we were getting a little burnt out on all this stuff. I had a love of music. So we very briefly did an offshoot called Icons of Punk. We thought maybe we could rebrand Icons of as other. Jay, your cousin, for a while successfully Icons of the Ring, which was like a wrestling site. And we just gave him permission. We're like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun.
Do it.
Now, I don't think it made your cousin Mike like a famous guy or anything, or it was just for fun. He had an excuse to interview his wrestling icons.
He has incredible stories, which eerily mirror our early stories of, just calling people at home.
Right.
He was like really good at it too for a while. It was really funny. He got a lot of wrestling legends interviewed. That was cool.
Yeah, and there wasn't much to Icons of Punk. There's only like 4 or 5 solid interviews, because I tried to get some of my Tower Records people involved, and they just didn't follow through. But
I'm not a
interview?
music journalist. Davey Von Bolen from the Promise Ring. And it was after the Promise Ring, and he wasn't working in music at the time. Oh, he was working on Maritime. I think Maritime had just dropped a few albums, but mostly he had transitioned away from music and into a career with he's raising a family. And I'm not a music. I mean, I listen to music, but I'm not like you, Rob. I don't know about musicians. I don't know the creative process. So I really was sort of like, I wasn't really entirely comfortable interviewing a musician. I couldn't speak that language. But we had a nice conversation. The one thing I remember about it was I called them up, and they had just gotten a tornado warning, and he was sheltering in place in a stairwell, I think, at his office, and then we had to call back. But it was nice. It was a really pleasant conversation. I don't think it was very. I mean, if I haven't read it in years, I don't know if it really if I had much to say other than
I think
Promise Ring.
I thought you did. I thought you did a great job. Job. I did reread it. It's up on my website now under the Icons of Fright, Icons of Punk tab. And I think you even say it might be in the interview where he's like, "Hey, if I lose you, it's just the tornado. I'll call you back."
The tornado,
stuff like that, which is kind of funny. The ones I did were Jeremy Nick from Sunny Day Real Estate, who I was a big fan of, Jonah Matraga from FAR, who I'm now friendly with still to this day.
Very friendly. Yeah.
And I did Six Finger Satellite, Jay Ryan. They were an obscure sub pop band, but the reason I liked them is because I thought they were from Mars, and nobody had ever talked to them. And they literally, I'd seen them a bunch of times in the 90s, and they were like, like the cantina in the original Star Wars. I thought that they were the band that played there on Punk Rock Night. Like that's how I described Six Finger Satellite. But I'll tell you the amazing thing, not to divert too much from horror, but the reason Jeremy Nick from Sunny Day Real Estate, like Sunny Day Real Estate are considered like the godfathers of emo. And I just found that tape and listened back to it not that long ago, because nobody had talked. They were so mysterious at that point. They were still broken up. Nobody had talked to them. Nobody had gotten to the bottom of anything to do with them. And I think Jeremy was putting out his own records at that point. So whatever his new record was, there was an email on the back for his label, which was his. I emailed it saying, "Hey, I'd like to interview him." And like 2 days later, they wrote me back and just gave me his phone number. I'm like, this can't be like, this guy is a mysterious legend. There's no way that this is how I get to talk to him. And not only did I talk to him, I think every single aspect of our interview is on their Wikipedia now. Like, I literally uncovered everything there is to know about San Diego real estate, including the fact that their second album, the Pink album, LP2, they were breaking up while they were making it, and people have deciphered the lyrics to be like these beautiful mythical fantasy like stories. And he said, he's like, dude, we broke up. I didn't even finish the lyrics. I'm literally singing gibberish. That is why there's not actual words on that album if you listen back to it. And it just like blew my mind that like we had, like, it's just interesting how it shatters the illusion that you build for some of these people, especially musicians. But that was one of my favorites. And I think that was exciting. And that's what led to Massive Hysteria, which again, we came up with that. It's a Ghostbusters quote, but masshysteria.com was taken. Masshysteria.net was taken. Every version of Mass Hysteria was taken. So I think Mike and I just came up with Massive Hysteria. Like, figured people would get it. And that was our goal, to be a little bit more pop culture oriented. We were going to stick to horror. But I, like, for example, like, we'd interviewed Adam Green a dozen times, but I knew that he loved Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. and things like that. So I really wanted to be able to talk to him about that side of stuff and not just horror. It gave us an excuse to talk to Savage Steve Holland, who did all these great 80s movies, you know? And some of that material is in the book because there was a lot of crossover between what Icons of Fright still existed, but Massive Hysteria was going concurrently. And we've kind of put things on both sites. And so, I had a really lengthy chat with Darren Lynn Bousman, with Marcus Dunstan. That's what was happening at that time period. And that all ended up on Massive Hysteria. And inevitably,
Savage Steve Holland on that? We had Savage Steve Holland, right?
He's not in the book, but that
is on.
We had him on Massive Hysteria, and that is on my website, restored again. And I think that also was kind of one of his very, very open interviews. Because
that was an epic interview.
Well, bless him. I mean, I still love the guy to this day. I mean, I grew up loving those movies. I had said in our first episode that it was Nightmare on Elm Street and Better Off Dead were kind of concurrently what made me who I am. And so I remember we got in touch. We went to the Saddle Ranch in Hollywood, and we had, he's like, oh, they've got like mechanical horses there and everything. And it's like, okay. And cotton candy. I mean, we're tipsy as hell. We got very drunk that afternoon, which is why he was very candid about John Cusack and everything else that went wrong on those movies. But amazing. And that's kind of what happened with all our interviews, whether we meant it or not, is like, we just were able to, that became very, beneficial, I think, for all of us to an extent going forward in terms of interviews. Obviously Adam doing the behind the scenes documentaries and stuff. We had great practice interviewing people. So by the time I got to my podcast stuff, it felt like, oh, I know how to get people comfortable and make it about them. Yeah. And really hear what fans want to hear about, So, anyway, this leads us to something that is brand new and exclusive to this book, and one of the motivating factors behind it, which is the lost interviews. So lost that Jay didn't even remember taking part in one of them. Now, my vague memory is that I had just moved to Los Angeles, or it was kind of in that period where I was moving to Los Angeles. And we had done these. They were very, very lengthy, and it took a lot to transcribe back then. I mean, now we have tools that will help us do that stuff. But back then, you were taking a whole night out to transcribe every single word that these people were saying. And we had done, there were 3 interviews. Well, there's 4, but 3 are in the book.
We could have paid to have people do that. But again, you don't make any money.
There's no money.
Websites back
I'd say we could afford it, and we were struggling as it was. But the first really big one that was a joy to find again was Tom Holland. Now, we had already been friendly with him. Obviously, I interviewed him for Psycho Legacy. We had done the Fright Night reunion together. We'd done the Psycho reunion. But Mike and I really wanted to sit with him and delve into everything, like do the the long Icons interview. Now,
Mhm.
here's why it never was published, for two reasons. One, we talked for a long time, and I think we got up to Child's Play, and he was emotionally drained and wanted to stop there. He had a lot of personal stuff that happened on that movie, and he said, he's like, boys, this is enough for today.
Yeah.
So I think
did.
we always intended to continue so that we could talk about all the work post Child's Play, and it just never happened. We just got wrapped up with other things. And the other thing is, there's a lot of stuff he said in the interview, and I could say this now. It's a lot of stuff he says in the interview is like, you can't print this, like, over and over again. But he has since come out and said all of it at convention appearances and interviews and all that.
Yeah.
It was a moment in time in 2008 where he felt like he needed to be a little more diplomatic. And, I'll give you one example is he always talks about how much he hates Scream for Help, the movie that he wrote that was directed by Michael Winter. And I love Michael Winter, Death Wish, Death Wish 1 through 3. And he just said, he didn't want to badmouth Michael Winter. He has since done so plenty about that script because it's the reason he became a director, is because he wanted to protect his scripts. And to his credit, and I had forgotten about this, Scream for Help, and this is why he was so mad about it. By the way, that movie is bonkers. If you've never seen it, watch it. It's on streaming. Shout Factory put it out. But he said it was Stepfather 2 years before Stepfather, if it was taken seriously, and it wasn't. It's done as an over-the-top, campy, crazy Death Wish sequel type of movie. But then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, Tom actually kind of wrote what would have been Stepfather if this was done differently. There's that stuff. But really, a lot of it's about his acting career. Like, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but he didn't get to talk about that often. And he was telling us about his time in New York.
Really,
He was coming up with Al Pacino and Harrison Ford and it's an incredible time for New York and how that transitioned to Psycho 2 and then Fright Night. So that's excellent. And also, I should have prepared a little better. So if somebody wants to talk about Tom right now, go for it. But there is something I have to mention that is one of those like Matrix kind of totally meant to be moments when I rediscovered this interview.
I enjoyed watching Psycho 4 with Tom. We did that after one of the interviews.
That's right.
If you remember that. Yeah.
I do remember that.
I do, because he had never seen it.
Yeah. And he'd only seen 3 maybe once.
Right. I won't say what it was. Yeah.
I remember we were at it. I think I might have been with you guys for one of the interviews, but I just watched.
You're a big part of the David J. Scow one. And we'll get to that in a minute.
The Tom one, I just remember because we had gone, he was there. Like I said, that's why I feel like I was at one of the Tom Holland sessions. But I just sat there because I was so blown away by this guy's house.
Right.
It was like it was like that's Hollywood. That's like that's a life in pictures. That.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I can't even explain how it was more than just an amazing house. It was like an entire career in the medium of film. It just was unbelievable. It was like you could tell it was his life's work. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And stuff that hadn't gotten made. Like, didn't he have like maquettes from? Wasn't he trying to remake Day of the Triffids?
Something. It was just.
And he had the maquettes of them and stuff.
Yeah, but it was just like.
He had the bat creature from Fright Night.
Yeah, he had that.
Yeah, over a doorway.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it was just when we speak to people, you know what I mean. It's like there's kind of we don't really have a window into their personal life or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the first time we were invited into somebody's home like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was like I was just like dumbstruck with it felt like you were walking into, like, I don't know, like the president of Warner Brothers house or something. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think
Like royalty, film royalty. That's what it felt like. It felt, it was crazy. It was crazy.
And I'll tell you the thing, I think I can say that Tom really loved and respected us, because especially when it was just like when Mike was there too, because my film knowledge and Mike's film knowledge are both vast in different ways, and then together we're like this film encyclopedia. Right. And he was always telling us kind of about how Rowdy McDowell would pass down all these Hollywood stories and stuff. And he references, it's even in the Lost interviews, like, nobody cares about this, and then he'd tell us these amazing stories about some of the early days of first moving out to LA or working as an actor in New York and all that. I'm sorry. The thing that I wanted to stop, the reason I stopped before, is because I had not seen or listened to this interview for, I don't know, whatever it was, 10 years until we started putting this book together. And literally the day before I transcribed this, somebody had told me about I don't know if it's even obscure, just a hard to find film noir film called Phantom Lady from 1944. And I had just watched this film and was so blown away by it, because it's kind of a pre-Hitchcock, before Hitchcock got to Psycho and doing those kind of thrillers. This film was doing stuff that was way ahead of its time. Because basically it was like, I think it was this guy gets accused of a murder, and the girl that loves him believes that it wasn't him, that it was a doppelganger, and gets involved in this whole thing. And we find out halfway through that, like, it's the best friend, but basically no one else knows that. And so it's one of those things where the audience is ahead of the characters in the movie, and you're worried for her because now she's with the killer. And the reason I bring that up is because, again, this is a movie I was seeking out for years. Finally found it. I think, honestly, it was on the Criterion Channel of all places. Watched it, was blown away. Then the next day, I find this Lost Tom Holland interview, and in his first question answer, when we ask him about first seeing Psycho, he brings up, there's one movie that you could see the form building. It's called Phantom Lady. It's this obscure noir. So the fact that I found that movie, saw it, and then suddenly there's a conversation we had all these years ago where he mentioned that exact movie. I was like, this is meant to be. This needs to go out again. You know? So that's what I wanted to say about the Lost Tom interview. We'd also done David Scow, because at that point, I'd already interviewed him for Psycho Legacy. I can't recall, Mike, if you were with us. I know Dave Parker absolutely was. Yeah, you were there too.
Yeah, I was there.
Because John Tarani shot it. Dave Parker was good, our mutual friend. He was there. So we were all there. So we were starting to become buddies with David. Now, we're not fully buddies with him yet, but we were getting to know him. And now he's one of my dear friends. But what's interesting about this interview, and I don't know why it got lost, is this is one of the first times we've extensively talked with him about everything from Leatherface to The Crow. Like, there's stuff he told us about The Crow that he was not openly talking about in that moment of time.
Yeah.
He told us I think it's now going to, like, I saw Michael Gingold post something about the Arrow Texas Chainsaw at the beginning, and saying how David's never talked about this before. He did with us in 2009. I just never published it. He talks about how he went to visit Michael Bay on the set of what was that big expensive movie with Ewan McGregor he was doing at the time? The Island?
The Island.
He's on a giant set with, like, with all these machines whirling, and in between takes, he's like, all right, tell me the opening of this movie you want to do. And he's and they never used it. That's the crazy thing, is basically he wanted to start from, like, I think it was like a piece of discarded meat in a garbage. And then what you realize is it's all in reverse. And it was how the slaughterhouse works, but in reverse. so that you see like the flesh going back on these bones, and it
Mhm.
goes all the way to the hammer and like Leatherface or whatever. And it's just like, wow, that's a crazy way to open a movie. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's what got me hired, and they didn't use it. You know. But then the other thing is like he was explaining how he got into screenwriting, because he was an author.
Yeah.
And to this day, he has boasted that he has never had another job other than writer, like ever. He's always been a working writer, whether it be the novels or screenplays or whatever. But he was telling us the whole bit about how they really wanted to hire him for, I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street 5, but he didn't have a screenplay. And so he had to write a Freddy's Nightmares to prove he could write a screenplay. And I think we'll put the audio out there because you could read it in Jay's voice, but it is hilarious. Jay's like, okay, hold on a minute. So you're an author. You wrote books, and they need to understand if you could write a screenplay. And he's like, yes. And he's like, but I don't understand. You have books that I could buy at a bookstore.
Right.
And he was like trying to explain it. He's like, no, it's a different, they don't read books. They don't care about the
It was the complete naivete of the industry.
Yeah.
We were so, I couldn't understand how it, it didn't translate.
Yeah.
To be totally fair, I still don't quite understand how it doesn't translate. And this is after writing screenplays and knowing there's obviously a huge difference between a novel and a screenplay. It's a totally different medium, but
yeah,
I mean, not all that completely different, like he spoke about the mechanical aspects of writing a screenplay, which you can like a writer like him, you could learn that stuff in a day. It just, I couldn't understand how that industry kept making you prove yourself even after you've had success, which
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Yes. You're seeing it from storytelling is storytelling, and he's a good storyteller. So what's the problem?
Right.
But they're like,
yeah.
And this is before, your computer came with formatting software. So they wanted to see, I guess where he would put his slug lines and his titles and his,
It's so crazy because knowing what I know now, they probably didn't even fucking read the script. It was just like, here's 90 pages that have some brass tacks in them, and it looks right.
He proved he could do it.
Yeah.
Well, I also love, and it's I'll save it for the readers, but I guess it's the opening page or two that we're talking to him, where we always ask people what their earliest horror recollections are, what they start with, and I think it's him and Mike playing back and forth ping pong. You guys come up, it's mostly David, but you definitely chime in. He comes up with this brilliant analogy of how basically loving horror and being a horror fan is like a religion. It's like, you have your set ritual, like
that's right.
Go to church every Sunday. I got to check the TV guide because I know it's going to be monster night on whatever. He's like, you try to marry within your own,
right.
like that kind of stuff. It's like the way that you guys keep going back and forth. And he even goes as far as to say, like, listen, I believe in the Mummy's tune. I know it exists because I've seen it. He's like, I don't know about any other religions, but that's a fact. It's like, I can tell you about the Mummy's tune because it exists and I have seen it. So I just, that makes me laugh a lot. I think it's pretty brilliant. And going back for 1 second, the other interesting thing about the Tom Holland interview, which I think it's still in this, we edited a little bit, but is at that moment in time, Hollywood was going through a massive writer's strike. And also a lot of concern about how things were going to pan out with the internet, with YouTube and those kind of formats. So it's kind of interesting that we literally just went through it again all these years later, and almost nothing's changed. Now it went from internet to streaming, basically, so that's an interesting window. And last but not least, we did an interview with Kat Shea, which is kind of, we had met her. It was a whirlwind when we were doing interviews for Psycho Legacy. And I know Mike was with me for a handful of them. Kat just came to us because Mick knew her and was like, you should interview Kat because she was in Psycho 3. And so I interviewed her for the documentary. She became a good friend and was very sweet to us in general. And then we just started talking about her filmography. I was like, well, we got to do an Icons interview with her. So I remember Mike and I went to her place, and and I'm going to say this politely. She doesn't like being interviewed. I've learned over the years, she likes to have casual conversations. So we really had to almost trick her into just being candid and open about stuff. But now that we have it and we got that side of her, it's a great reading back. It's a great interview. The one tidbit I'll give away to excite people is how, she took over the Rage Carrie 2, I think 2 weeks into shooting. They were already shooting with a completely different director. Yeah. So she was brought in on a Thursday or a Friday. She was looking at for DPs. She found the DP she liked, looked at his resume. He flew in on Sunday. They're supposed to shoot on Monday, and she meets him. And the first thing he says to her, she's like, well, the only reason I hired you is because you did The Wall. And he's like, well, have you seen The Wall? That it's not out yet. And she's like, what do you mean? I love Pink Floyd The Wall. So my favorite movies of all time. And he's like, I did not shoot Pink Floyd The Wall. And she's like, oh, well, you're here, so I guess let's go. Yeah. So the only reason she got the DP for that movie is because she thought he was the guy that did Pink Floyd The Wall. And thankfully it turned out great. So, and by the way, right now, I just noticed that Vinegar Syndrome has a 4K of the 4K. Rage Carrie 2, which is ridiculous. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So the only other lost interview we have that I might try to resurface on the web at some point was we also sat down with Toby Wilkins, and that was all of us. It's very noisy because we met him for breakfast somewhere. Toby Wilkins had done Splinter.
I remember that.
Which was
Splinter guy.
A really cool, underrated movie from that era. Yeah. He was The really Grudge cool. 3. I think that's what had just come out at that moment in time. And just like with all these other filmmakers, because of how we felt about Splinter, we're like, we should hang out and talk to him.
You know what I remember about that, Rob? We spoke a lot about Shea Wiggum, and he is this like huge fucking star now, like really respected actor in everything. But I remember we spoke, all of us were like, he's so fucking good, like in this movie. And I remember Toby was really gracious and was like, he's awesome, we really lucked out with him. And then lo and behold, he's in everything.
I think if we could separate some of the background noise, we might be able to salvage that interview at some point. But you should all check out Splinter, because that was a damn cool
that was
King-esque movie from then. So anyways, before I know Jay had some stuff he wanted to bring to the table that I thought was interesting for all of us. You wanted to know about
a Jay surprise.
A Jay surprise. Well, you tell us. You wanted to know fave interview either that we've done or that someone else did from Icons, and also who we would want to interview.
Yeah, let's talk about the last 3. Let's talk about the brand new interviews first, because they're very special. I Rob interviewed I'm totally blanking. Parker Finn from Smile.
Parker Finn.
Yes. John Watts, who is the producer on the latest Final Destination, and got his start with Clown, but of course did all the Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
I can't even understand it. I had no idea that was the same guy who made Clown, and then he made Spider-Man. The Parker Finn interview was fantastic, and this was before his role in the studio.
Yes, that's true. He plays himself in the studio. Which, have you guys been watching that show on Apple?
No, I haven't started that yet. I gotta watch that.
It's the best.
So in the studio, it's about studio execs, but Seth Rogen plays the head of a studio. What's the name of the movie they're trying to make? Do you remember, Jay?
Grin.
They're trying to make a Smile ripoff, and so let's just bring in the guy that did Smile. so he plays himself. He's a total good sport.
Amazing.
Basically, like, okay, so why do you want me to rip off myself? And he just keeps blowing him off, and he's just like, Parker gets really angry. It's really, it's a really good role. But
those are amazing interviews. Brand new. Rob, you completely killed those interviews. But the one that just absolutely blew me away was the I can't remember the
Danny
guy.
Philippi, the Talk to Me director.
The Talk to Me, the one of the two brothers, right? Who did that?
Yeah.
That's probably the best interview that guy is ever going to give. Like without a doubt.
I'll be honest with you, and again, it goes back to kind of the I don't want to say it's the secret, but it's like that's what Icons did, was make people feel comfortable. I love Talk to Me. I think Talk to Me is one of the best genre movies of the last 20 years. I've never had such a visceral reaction to a movie. And I know this is bold, but it's the way I felt seeing Nightmare on Elm Street as a kid. I was shaken in my core seeing that film. Also, I had just lost my mother in real life, and that movie deals with grief in a very unique way. And it's about the lead character losing her mother. And the thing is, I got that through my current job. I work in theatrical exhibition, and I deal with a lot of reps from all the companies. And so, I asked Paramount, I'm like, hey, can you put me in touch with Parker Fan? And much to my surprise, they did right away. Same thing happened with A24 and Danny, which I really didn't think was going to happen. But lo and behold, he was able to jump on a Zoom with me. The other benefit post-pandemic is anybody can talk via Zoom like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I rewatched the movie with the commentary, Talk to Me, and they purposely do not give away anything. He doesn't want to talk about influences. He doesn't want to talk about real life things that inspired it. And it was kind of the same in all the interviews. And knowing that, I'm like, all right. And basically the way I pitch it, and you'll read it in the book, is, hey, look, I've never seen a horror film, let alone any film, capture how lonely grief is than this film. Almost like grief is contagious. And I know how that feels because I lost my mom at the same time that I saw this movie, blah, blah. And bless him, you're right. He did reveal a lot that he doesn't talk about ever. And I was a little taken aback. But I think we had a very emotional one-on-one talking about a lot of these very personal things. He does talk about a suicide in his family that inspired the death in Talk to Me. The one thing I thought was incredible, and this is the story he does tell in the commentaries and everything, but we expanded upon a little bit, is the whole idea about the hand in that movie all stemmed from that he was in a bad car accident, and when he got out, he was like shaken and couldn't calm down, and it wasn't until his sister came and held his hand that, like, oh my God, like the power of a loved one just holding your hand, how that can literally calm your whole body. And that's like, that to me is that's the gateway. That's the perfect thing for it. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. We talk a little bit about Bring Her Back, but not much. And I think they're 2 for 2. I think that movie's excellent as well.
Yeah.
That's I believe that's the last interview in the book, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the most powerful interview, not just in the book, but I think you've ever done. Those three interviews, honestly, I was a little jealous. It made me miss doing what we used to do. It even gave me a little hope. Maybe things continue on past this book and past these 5.
Listen, I would love that. And those came together in a very quick, unique way that I wish I could have had all of you involved in them. And maybe we can do that in the future where we have somebody come here and we all interview them. They all came about. I mean, the John Watts was, shout out to Craig Perry. Craig Perry is the producer of both the Final Destination and the American Pie franchises. He's got those both under his belt. I've known him for years. He was a big supporter of Shockwaves and Killer Pig on my podcasts. We've been good friends. And I was just trying to brainstorm. There's plenty of people we tried to get that didn't work out for one reason or another. And it was such a long shot, but I knew that John Watts was the reason Final Destination Bloodlines happened, because that franchise had been dormant for 15 years. And then he just happened to say, hey, I like those. We should make one of those. And they're like, well, if you put your name on it, done deal. And so, I asked Craig, I was like, you think he would talk to me maybe? And he's like, he hates interviews, so probably not, but I'll try.
Yeah.
And he did. And Craig texted me back a few days later and like, dude, he said he'd do it. He's like, well, he was surprised, like he'll do it. And he gave me, I think we only had a half hour. He gave me an hour. He gave me more. He was very generous with his time, answered all my dumb spider.
That's how it always was.
Yeah.
We'd put 15 minutes with people and we would spend the afternoon.
Yeah. And his clown stories.
Classic.
His clown stories are incredible. Like obviously the whole Mox trailer and putting Eli Roth's name on it. And then Eli Roth wanting to make it in a movie and him explaining, he's like, dude, he called me and I thought he was going to sue me. So he'd be like, dude, I'm so sorry. So stupid. I didn't mean to do that. He's like, no, I want to make it into a movie. He's like, oh, it's like, yeah, you have the script, right? He's like, yeah. All right. When do you need it? And they just wrote it. Wrote it in the 2 weeks it took before their meeting with him, which is hilarious. So all that stuff's
brings
inspiring.
Me to two questions I had for the group. And I guess I'll start. The first question is, we've talked about our favorite icons interviews from, the whole time, the ones that mean a lot to us, the personal ones. But I want to know what everybody's favorite interview from the book is. Mine, honestly, I have two, but I think my favorite interviews in the book, honestly, are Mike's interview with Ben Chapman. I think that just perfectly encapsulates everything that Icons of Fright was about. It also kind of takes it back to the beginning, finding those Crestwood House monster books at the library, seeing the creature, and literally Ben Chapman being a literal icon of fright. And we've had a few, but we've had many, obviously. But that one is like, that's the creature. That's the guy who played the creature, and you interviewed him. My super close second favorite is actually Rob's interviews with Frank Henenlotter towards the end of the book, which were awesome. Again,
it's a two-parter because one I did for Shock 2 Drop. Well, because I did the initial one for Shock 2 Drop, and then the second one for Icons, but I delved more into his past stuff. You really needed to read them both back to back. So we put them together.
Two-parter, but they're a year apart, which is amazing. But those were my two favorite interviews from the book. Barnick, what do you think?
Well, it's fine. I made notes on that. I didn't know whether you were going to ask what's the favorite interview we've conducted or what's just our favorite interview. Like I have answers.
Let's hear both. Yeah, let's hear
both. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in the book, I have my favorite interviews, which is it's our big group one with Larry Fessenden.
100%.
Yes. I mean, we love him. We love his films. That interview it's very, excited people shooting the shit and laughing and breaking each other's balls, but also we're learning too, like we were interviewing him. It wasn't just let's get drinks and record it, and it's a great, that's one of the best things about the book. I feel like is like that feeling that washes over you. Like if you know these films or these people, or you're getting to know these people from these interviews. And I just happen to, it's probably my favorite, especially because it is all of us.
Yeah.
If I have to pick one that's just me interviewing someone, it's probably Nathan Basil.
Yeah.
Because I think we covered so many interesting, smart things, and I really was able to. I mean, the thing was we really connected with everyone we interviewed. It wasn't just an assignment. And that one I think is quite different than some of the other ones we've got in the book, and isn't just tell us about Leslie Vernon. If I have to choose interviews, fave in the book outside of me, it's kind of a tie between David Scow and Tom Holland. Funny that these two lost ones, they both go back. They both are very frank about the silliness of the business. They don't sugarcoat stuff. They're both brilliant. They and there's room for the nerdiness. I'm pretty fond of the Parker Finn one though too, because that's when I saw that it was like, oh wow, the core of icons is still here after like over a decade. Like it's still 2 to 3 people getting very excited talking about what excites them, and especially reaching back in the roots, so you immediately connect with some of your creative foundation and then bring it up to now. So I feel like I really like that because there aren't sites doing this kind of stuff. Maybe it's arguable in terms of like people's attention span if they're just clicking on everything, but it's like the interviewing people to this depth still has a serious value that because you don't forget it, like these interviews are coming back after 15, 20 years, because a publisher is seeing value in them. So when everything is so disposable now, it's nice to have something that feels a little more solid. Not because it's in a physical book, but because it's got some meat in it.
It's kind of evergreen, right? These interviews, even though they're from the past, they still, like Barnick said, like they still have this value that you can glean from.
Yeah, and it's a history record now, and we're bouncing from golden age stuff to the 70s to 80s to a couple interviews that are movies that have only been out for a couple of months.
Yeah. To piggyback on that really quickly, because I completely forgot that we skipped over 2009. But that's fine. Larry is my favorite interview because we're all a part of it, and it just feels like the epitome of Icons of Fright. But to put a cap on a lot of what you guys are saying, I want to. The Jeff Burr interview means a lot.
Oh, you can't put that. That'll be us together. That'll be go on. Was
that going to be your favorite?
It is my all-time favorite, I think, out of the book.
Yeah.
Go ahead, because we
can both talk about it. Look, a lot of the icons that are in here are not with us anymore.
Yeah,
and this was before I lived here. Mike and I would come out together pretty regularly, and Jeff was one of these guys. First of all, to me, Jeff was a hero and a legend because, some people might look at horror sequels as schlocky or whatever, but no, I waited it also with David Scow. I waited outside of the theater to get into Leatherface until somebody would pretend to be my guardian. Like, it meant the world to me to see Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. That was a big deal to me, regardless of what a tough time it was on them. And then simultaneously, it's like I'm renting Puppet Master 4 and 5 and Pumpkinhead 2 and just all the Stepfather 2, all these things that he had done. And in fact, he signed my I still have the DVD of Pumpkinhead 2. I will never get it because he signed it. Thanks for being the one person that likes this movie. and I'm like, that's how he was. He was very self-deprecating, but also had a great sense of humor about it. But such a passion for movies. Like, he loved movies. And we sort of knew him because we'd come out here and there was a group of people that included like Dave Parker, Clu Gulager, Darren Scott, that would get together every Thursday night and have drinks at Timmy Nolan's, which is no longer there. And so we got to know all of them socially a little bit, but really I was like, I really want to sit with Jeff. And so Mike and I met Jeff at a place called Twain's, also no longer there. It was on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks. And we sat with him for like 2-3 hours over lunch. And we went through his entire filmography, like from start to finish. And he was so candid about, like, he had no secrets about anything.
Nothing.
He was an open book, so much so that when we got to the Devil's Den with Ken Foray or Ken Force or whatever, when we got to the Devil's Den, I was like, are you sure that you want to be saying this? And he's like, it's America, baby. I can say whatever I want. I was just like, that's Jeff, it was amazing to me. And here's the thing. I didn't think of it at the time when Mike and I did. I mean, I loved the interview and I was so glad we were putting out there and getting all these stories about, he got hired to do Leatherface. That weekend, went to go see Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and saw that teaser for Leatherface, the movie he's about to direct. And there's a teaser trailer playing at the Chinese movie theater. And he's like, who made that? Okay, all right. Like, so many amazing, like, there's crazy, like just, like crazy stories about the industry. And now, now I reread the book now that he's gone, the interview in the book with him gone. And I felt a sense of both pride and this weird responsibility, this weird responsibility that, like, holy shit, like for me and Mike, it was 2 hours at a diner, and yet this is his definitive interview. Like, this is the one time he talked about his entire career and was honest about all of it. So if you need to know anything about Jeff, it's from our interview. And there's kind of like, there's like this scary kind of responsibility in that, but also something that I think needs to be out there, because I love Jeff, man. The last time I saw him, he came out to Chattanooga Film Festival, I think 2019, and sat with us for Shockwaves. The last comment that he ever left for me was condolences from my mom. So, like, you know, he's a good dude, and it makes me sad that a lot of these people aren't here, but him in particular. So yeah, that's my favorite interview by far. Mike, do you feel the same way?
That is my favorite interview. I feel the same way, but I hope that when you read that interview, it maybe just gives you a sense of kind of also, we feel about those responsibilities is very important too, but kind of the wonder of having the two of us just sitting there in a diner with this guy whose movies we loved. And what still sometimes I think, like, what the hell are we doing here? The whole time, every time we do one of these things, but especially at times like that when people would take us out and we, like I said, we're supposed to spend 15 minutes and we spend 3 hours. It just was magical. It was a magical experience. When I think about icons and I think about what is like the definitive icons of Fright experience for the both of us, I think that was it. It wasn't a pretentious interview. It wasn't part of no one was there to promote anything. And it wasn't like we're going to someone's like crazy house. It was just us and a couple of eggs and bacon and Jeff telling us his Vincent Price stories, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Magic. And it's it still always brings a smile to my face. I get a little emotional about thinking about that one. When he passed, like, it really made me, I just, you know, I didn't know you. I didn't know Jeff as well as you did, and he didn't like stay in touch, but I really felt like that really was special and wonderful. And what we set out to do really is that interview. That's what we never knew who thought we would be there. You know, who thought we would be out in LA? We were supposed to just do these, like, we were trying to get a couple extra minutes of time at a convention table.
Yeah.
And
it led to that. 3 hours at
hours with people. Hours.
Well,
and sometimes not with Jeff, but with some of the other folks, years long connections that just came out of these interviews.
Yeah. 100%.
I don't know how many people are in, or how many people who've gone on to do sort of similar things have created those bonds too. I think some of our interviews, because we brought our own personal experience and sometimes a lot of our personal experiences with these movies and connected with those folks. We sometimes made some really interesting connections, emotional connections, personal connections with the people we were interviewing. Because we were
very lucky.
And I think we're very honest and very there is the sincerity still comes through. I think came through when we were doing the interviews, is we weren't there to push or pull anything. We weren't there to make a buck. It was a genuine interest in every word they had to say. And it's still, and I hope that comes across in the book. I hope you, when you're reading it, you understand that when we were giving our questions are 2 sentences long and these answers are sometimes paragraphs, and we are there in the moment, hanging on every word. That's why that's why it was such a struggle when things changed and went to short form and went to sound bites and went to snippets. And there was just sort of, there just wasn't a market for what we're doing anymore, at least in print on the web. Maybe as a podcast format, you see a lot of that now. But we were really, truly enthralled at every single time I was on the phone with somebody. My interviews sometimes feel quiet. If you look back on the tapes, I don't say much because I don't want to say much. I just want to hear. That's what I came to. That's what I started this to do, is to just hear these stories and to revel in it and to absorb it and to learn so much. Yeah.
Well, and I think, especially with somebody like Jeff, like I love the idea. One of the things that I've been making notes on in the book is like I love paying it forward. Like as much as we love Jeff's films, he was very passionate about two films he did called Eddie Presley and Straight into Darkness, which were more independent films. And to me, that when even as a fan reading somebody else's interviews, you get interested in a filmmaker, and then you hear about these passion projects they did that maybe aren't as easy to come by, and you really want to get to those. In the same instance. Because yeah, you should definitely, if you know Jeff just from the horror sequels, definitely Eddie Presley and Straight into Darkness are worth checking out. But also, we got to be friendly for a very short period of time with Sage Stallone when he was promoting Grindhouse releasing and doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He came to the convention. I mean, I think the story warrants telling, but he came to one of his first Fangoria conventions. We met him right away, and we were like all geeky and excited. And he had made a short film called Vic, which to this day I think is one of the most beautiful short films anyone's ever made. Right. And it was a little weird because he was showing it at a horror convention. And granted, Clu Gulager starred in it, and it has a horror element just in the opening scene. But he was going to screen it as part of his panel for Grindhouse releasing, where they were really promoting the Cannibal Holocaust DVD at the time. And he was, he was a nervous, neurotic horror nerd like us. And I don't know how this happened, but he told one of us, like, I really want to test the DVD and watch this short and make sure it's okay. And so it might have been Tarani who just found a random room in the hotel, like one of those conferences, tiny conference room, set up his TV and DVD player. And it was literally just us, me, Mike J. It was the first time that we got to sit down with Clu Gulager, John Gulager, Diane Gulager.
Right, they were all there.
They're all. I mean, it was like the 6 or 7 of us sitting there, and we watched this short. I think we were all really like very emotionally affected by it, and then had this beautiful conversation with them about it, and really, gave Sage confidence. Like, this dude, you're a great director. This is a great piece of filmmaking.
We didn't just talk about the movie with him. We talked about a lot with him. It was really in-depth.
I remember him showing us like Grindhouse trailers for stuff they were going to do. And my memory was like, he showed us the trailer to Pieces. And I was like, I can't believe you guys are going to restore and put out Pieces. Wow. But the punchline, I don't know if you guys remember this. So the next day their panel comes and there was a glitch and they didn't show his short. The short never played. Instead, they had to skip to the Cannibal Holocaust panel. And we were the only people that weekend that got to see his short film.
Right. Yeah.
And, and then, I kept in touch with them a little bit via email, not much. I used to joke and be like, me and Mike are going to come to LA and we will totally do an all-night horror marathon with you. Like, we'll stay up all night and just watch like 5 movies in a row. And it never happened. Unfortunately, he passed away way too young. And one of the things I do, I literally have extra copies here right now, but I usually get them from Diabolic DVD. There is a DVD version of his short film, Vic. I literally buy multiple copies of it, and I just give it to people that I think would appreciate it because it's my little way of passing it forward. And not just for him, now for Clu. Clu's gone. And I thought, him and his late wife are in the short film, and I think it's a beautiful tribute to them. So I really want to pay forward. Maybe maybe there's some
Dark
things
Fast
that it did get dark fast. Maybe there's some things that you already know about. You know about the Hatchet and Behind the Mask. But if you discover some of these other films through us or through the book or whatever, then that to me is great. And in fact, maybe we could tie into I know Jay's going to do some social media stuff. Maybe we can recommend some of these movies that we were showcasing in that time period, because they deserve to be kind of rediscovered and talked about.
Yeah.
So
to wrap up, well, not to wrap up, but sure, why not? I want to ask each of you, who would you want to have an old school icons interview with? Who haven't you interviewed that you would love to speak with?
We never got Robert Englund.
We never got Robert Englund.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that I got to speak to some of these people in other contexts because I started doing behind, like I spoke to Robert England, but about Galaxy of Terror, which is an exact, like, it's cool, but I regret we didn't do the Icons interview with him.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. But Rob, you had another answer for when you were first talking about putting new interviews in the book that I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I have two dream guests. The one that was for the book that we never really pursued too far. I just wanted to get me and Mike on the phone with John Waters to just talk about horror films because I've read plenty of John Waters interviews and seen him. I don't know if he talks about horror peripherally. He'll mention a movie, and he was in a Child's Play series, so one of those sequels. But I would love to just talk horror with him. I just want to hear everything he has to say about horror. And I don't know, maybe one day we'll make that happen. I couldn't figure out.
I mean, I said we didn't. We never got Robert Englund. If there is ever a continuation of this, he's still with us. It's not like he's long since passed.
Yeah, we can get him.
Mike, what about you? Who's somebody you would really like to speak with?
Well, it was Robert Englund was really the other one. We never. Now everyone's gonna roll their eyes because I'm gonna do this because I do this all the time. But I try. Jesus Christ, if I could do the Icons of Fright interview with Linda Blair and we could just bullshit about The Exorcist 2 for an hour and a half, I would do it. Even though she probably wouldn't. Even though she yelled at me once about.
Don't you think enough time has passed where maybe she would be open to talking?
I don't know. I
it?
heard there's a documentary in the works about The Exorcist 2, and there was a book put out. But if she's in those, maybe she she's. I've only ever seen her talk very briefly about it. She's on the special features for the Shout Factory disc. But we also never. That's another one we never got. I would love to have talked to her about her experience as a child in that industry and growing up her transition into like 80s exploitation movies is fascinating. Mm-hmm. And of course the work she continues to do with animals is wonderfully beautiful. Yeah.
That's the big one. And actually, Mike, do you remember the convention? It had to be a Chiller, I think, where
of course I remember, but she yelled at me.
Yeah. Well, what happened was
okay. Yeah, okay. So Rob likes to sell what Rob likes to go, because I used to go to these conventions and I have a very eclectic taste in movies. I may like the greatest thing you've ever done. I may love a movie you've won an award for, and I may love a movie that's just a piece of trash, but I genuinely love the movie. Yeah. And I came over to her table and I had a copy of Airport 1975, which if you've never seen, it's a disaster movie. Most of you guys have never seen Airport 1975. Airport 1975 is about a 747 collides with a small plane, and there's a hole in the plane, and they got to land it, and it's got full of great stunt work. It's wonderful. And Linda Blair is on the plane. She's a sick girl. She's the sick. If you've seen Airplane, that's the sick girl. That's the character that inspired her character. So I just asked her, I put down my copy of Airport 1975 and I said, I would like this signed. And then I told her, I said, look, I just want you to know, and I actually happen to like Exorcist 2. I think you're very good in it. And then she just sort of got a super sour look on her face. And she just started wagging her finger at me and saying, it's, just it's a piece of shit. That movie is a piece of shit. And I was just like, okay, I just thought, I think there's a bit of a good movie in there somewhere. Just, it's a piece of shit. And Rob's across the tent over there in Chiller, just watching it, Linda Blair going like that to me. And I walked away and I was like, okay. He goes, oh, so what happened? And I told him, I'm like, well, I said, I kind of like the movie. I still do.
Can I get my POV? Can I get my POV on this story?
Okay, sure. Well, I know your POV. Mike, you go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you always say.
Mike walks over. He's talking to Linda Blair, and I see her going like this to him, and they're like pointing at each other. And so he comes back over, and I say, "What happened?" And he's like, "All I did was say, I loved you in Exorcist 2. Can you sign my Airport 75?" And I'm like, "Oh, all right." And that's why she wagged her finger at you, huh? All right.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you,
She
Barney?
apologized. She apologized. I want everyone to know that she apologized. Minutes later, I walked back past. She pulled me over, and she said, "Look, I'm sorry. I realized after you walked away that I'd yelled at a fan." And I was like, "No, I mean, I totally understand. I just had a perspective on it where and we can always talk about. Now you've started. Now, great. Now we've kicked it off. Now we're going to need 7 more episodes for me to talk about The Exorcist 2. I think there's 2 things about it. There's 2. Just let me get it out of my system so that everyone can finally let me get it out of my system.
By the way, Mike,
talk about it.
By the way, Mike has his own edit of Exorcist 2.
I do have my own edit. That's right. Correct.
He's fixed
it. I fixed it. It's less 85 minutes long. And it's fixed. I'm not talking about that. I was fascinated by it because I watched it after I watched The Exorcist when I was a kid. I couldn't understand it, and I had to turn it off. I didn't know what the hell was happening. I didn't understand what I was looking at, and I went back years later and watched it. And there's such something about it where you feel like it is absolutely fascinating. This is a movie that cost Warner Brothers produced it, same year as Star Wars. It cost more than Star Wars. It's got John Boorman, who's one of the greatest directors that ever lived. You've got Linda Blair. She's doing just a fantastic job in that movie. She's absolutely phenomenal. You have one of Ennio Morricone's greatest scores. William Friedkin shoots it. He's one of the most brilliant. The cinematography is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. There's not a shot in that movie that isn't a work of art, and it's just absolutely fascinating. You have all these people at the peak of their talents, at the top of their powers, making this movie, and it just explodes. It just blows up.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. The whole thing doesn't work. It's like I always tell people, it's a finely tuned Swiss watch, and when you turn the knob to wind it up, the watch blows up. It's fascinating. It's unbelievable. And this is a thing that has happened. It happens a lot, in movies. It's not uncommon, but it's rare. It's rare. And it just warrants an explanation, and it warrants an exploration. So many people have done it. Like I said, there's a book. I know there's a documentary coming out. How did it happen? How did that happen? And I still also think that there's a good movie in there because it has a movie that has a lot to say. It's a very misunderstood film. Martin Scorsese loves it, and Paulie Kael liked it. I mean, I'm sure they weren't thrilled about it, but they had kind things to say, kinder things than William Friedkin has ever had to say about it. But
did he yell you at a convention too?
Yeah, no,
freaking
out. But so that's it. It's just my long, unending fascination with expensive movies that don't work. It is, I can't look away. So there, I've gotten that out of my system. Feel free to cut that out, Jake.
No, we're keeping that.
That was actually episode 6.
Yeah.
So Barnick,
Yo.
who would you really like to speak with in the future icons?
Okay. In the future, as you were mentioning this, I had 2 ideas, and one there would still be an option, and one there isn't because he's not with us anymore. But let's say at the time, I wish I had spoken to Stan Winston, who passed in 2008.
Yeah.
No explanation necessary unless you know who Stan Winston is. But just from just from his effects pioneering and to his, I'm always I would spend 8 hours just listening to him talk about making Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
I mean, not just from
I would be curious to hear about him as a director because he only did 2 or 3 films.
I think only 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, I read a lot of interviews with the people who did do the effects on it because they knew their work was going to be, represented right, and he would know how to shoot it. But I mean, I think that movie's just terrific. Halloween-y storytelling. It's not even about this guy really knew how to make a good effects movie. I think that's one of the classic horror films from that period. In terms of if we were up and running again, probably David Cronenberg. Though I feel like I would have to study and plan for 3 months before I got in the room.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a Barnick interview with David Cronenberg would be the only interview anyone would ever need to do with David Cronenberg ever again.
Yeah.
Oh, did you mention trying to get Cronenberg for this? Was that one of the wish list names we were floating?
I think so,
because
but I don't think.
Definitely don't think I would have pursued it. It is just like Jay says. That's a little intimidating.
Too
Yeah.
intimidating.
Barnett could handle it. Barnett could absolutely.
Barnett
Oh
could.
yeah.
I got to blown up on like my unread philosophy books or something, but
Yeah.
it would be a lot. But I mean, what's that?
I remember how long I spent trying to find that copy of Cronenberg on Cronenberg. That was one of my.
Oh
I
yeah.
was just going to mention that book. Is that
It's a white
great
whale.
I have worn that book out, and I bet you that probably was the unconscious basis for me wanting to do in-depth interviews like those series, like Lynch on Lynch, Gilliam on Gilliam, but especially Cronenberg on Cronenberg, because you know the questions and the answers are equally smart, and like it's the perfect long-form conversation. Is that book?
Yeah.
I still have my falling
Good
apart
answer.
copy on the shelf.
Yeah,
But
still
yeah,
my copy.
that's
Well,
your intelligence, your IQ goes up reading that book. You know.
Yeah.
well, I would
Yeah.
I would have been intimidated by somebody like Cronenberg. Although and John Waters just seems like he'd be fun. My number one, and I'd said this a dozen times, my number one is really, and I know this won't make sense initially, but like Martin Scorsese. I want to talk to Martin Scorsese solely about horror. That's it.
Yes.
Because when I've heard him, he's the reason I know about The Uninvited and The Innocents, the Criterion versions.
Right.
Because he championed both of those films on Criterion, and now they're two of my favorite releases of theirs. But also, like during the pandemic, I still have it saved somewhere. During the pandemic, I think it was Edgar Wright and Quentin Tarantino like emailed him, and they're like, "Hey, we're in lockdown. Like, what are like 100 of the most like obscure movies that we should check out?" And he gave them a list of 100 movies. And they were both watching them, like talking about it.
Yeah.
And I went through a few of them because I'm like, this is amazing. Like his brain for film and film history. I mean, I actually like a lot of the world movies that he does through Criterion. But again, hearing him talk about The Uninvited and things like that, it's just like, man, and you know, Exorcist 2, he's apparently a fan of that. Like, if we could do just the Icon style interview where we're just talking about what scared him as a kid and what horror movies like, and even he's dabbled with horror, and I mean, some of his stuff is horror, but not like flat out. I mean, I think that would be the ultimate to just talk to somebody like that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. You know? I think piggybacking off that, my three big gets. I mean, I would love to have, and it's funny because we've crossed paths a bunch of times, but I would love to have like an old school Icons extensive interview with Guillermo, talking about just nothing, you know, just talking about whatever popped in his mind.
You and I together had that great experience.
Yeah.
With him. It kind of was what you're talking about.
Yeah. That was the orphanage premiere.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
That was amazing. That was such a cool, another Tony Timpone, like, you know, wish granted. That was great.
Did he pair us up? I thought we bumped into him next to the coat room, and he just decided to stay and talk to us instead of
we were
the work
just
he was
hanging out.
Premiere.
We bonded over at the after party for the orphanage premiere. I forget exactly where it was, but they had an entire. Do you remember?
It's on the tip of my tongue. It's in Gramercy Park.
It's some really crazy, nice house.
It was one of those "what are we doing here" kind of locations.
Yes,
you know?
the thing where I think we became like lifelong friends is we both happened to stumble into the room of cakes. Remember the giant cake room? And like we're there, he comes in, he's like, "Oh, my friend, this is some spread." And like we were just, I couldn't believe how many cakes there were. It was like a giant long buffet table full of cakes. But I would love to have a hangout, shoot the shit conversation with Guillermo. I just watched Sinners, which fucking blew me away. And man, would I love to have an Icons interview with Ryan Coogler. That would be amazing. But my number one, believe it or not, is and I'll tell you why, is is Tim Burton. I would love to have a super nerdy, geeky, off the rails conversation with Tim Burton about monsters and monster movies and toys and whatever. Last year we went to the Sleepy Hollow Film Festival, and they showed Ed Wood in this beautiful old theater. Unbelievable. They also showed a couple of episodes of an upcoming, it should be out this year, I'm assuming in October, of a I guess on the Disney Channel, maybe like a Tim Burton multi-part documentary.
Oh, wow.
There were things I never knew about Tim Burton. But building off that, I still feel like even when people try to talk to him, like he's kind of guarded, but I think he's just it just seems like they were really asking him a lot about being Tim Burton and why are you so wacky? And, you're Tim Burton style. Nobody can do it. It's kind of like we know all that. And you can kind of tell he's like, how do you really answer these types of questions? I would love to know, what was his favorite monster movie? What was his, what was the first, what was he renting in the 80s, when he was like stuff like that. I would love to talk to him about.
It was his favorite model kit back then.
Yeah, exactly. Like stuff like that. I'm sure he has one, it's kind of like not speaking about being a director and not speaking about movies and all this stuff, just speaking about this stuff almost like we used to like as fans, those three for me would be some really great ones.
Well, it's not as extensive, but Famous Monsters magazine has come back. I think the guy from Slipknot is owns it now.
Yeah.
And it's taking a while for these issues to come out. And I don't really read the other magazines anymore, but what I loved about Famous Monsters was they did do an interview with Tim Burton, and it's not extensive, but it's kind of just talking to him about working with Christopher Lee and Vincent Price. And it's 2-3 pages, but I'm like, this is great. This is what I miss. Like, it's like, you're right. People tend to talk to him about him and his quirkiness. And it's like, no, somebody finally asked him, like, you got to work with Vincent Price on arguably his last movie. I think, there's a Vincent Price documentary about to come out, and Rob Zombie, very passionate. He's like, even if he didn't know this or the Poe films or this or that, he's like, even if you only knew him from his Edward Scissorhands role, he's still a goddamn legend, And it's like, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And so hearing somebody like Tim of that caliber talk about getting to work with those guys, Christopher Lee, Michael Goff, like, the old school guys. Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah, exactly. That would be really cool. Well, I think before we wrap this up, Rob, we should probably talk a little bit about the man who made this book possible.
Dustin McNeil.
Dustin McNeil.
Yes.
Speaking of legends.
Legends. Well, he does a lot of great books through his label, Harker Press. I've been a fan for years. I mean, he had done a Slash of the Titans, which was about every draft of Freddy versus Jason. So it's like every version you've ever wanted. And he does such meticulous research on these things. So he's done similar books. He did 2 called Taking Shape and Taking Shape 2.
Taking Shape are phenomenal.
They're great. They're great.
Phenomenal.
The first one is about the Halloween movies that came out, but every draft of every sequel that led to them. And then the second one is all of the unmade Halloweens.
It's great. It is, because that's another one of those things where it's my fascination with things gone wrong and where things go sideways. And I just couldn't put it down. It's phenomenal. Yeah. It scratches every itch I love about movie books.
Well, and even, I've told him this, and he took it as the greatest compliment ever. He also did a book called House of Rejects, where he delved into Rob Zombie's Firefly trilogy. Now, I've seen those films. I'll never forget seeing House of a Thousand Corpses and hearing Mike laugh in the aisle, not enjoying it. But I did love Devil's Rejects. I was pretty blown away by that, and I didn't really care for Three from Hell, but I love hearing Rob Zombie talk, and in fact, his interviews in our book are among my favorites.
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
because he's like what we're talking about, the type of dude that you just want to talk horror with. But House of Rejects inspired me so much that me and Scott Reynolds basically we were reading the book at the same time, and we did double feature nights. There's now I'm drawing a blank. There's a film they're watching in House of a Thousand Corpses. We watched it as a double bill with that film.
Oh, Old Dark House, maybe?
Yes, we watched Old Dark House
yeah.
and House of a Thousand Corpses one night because of Dustin's book, and then followed that up with Devil's Rejects and Three from Hell. And even though I still don't think Three from Hell totally works, I appreciate it much more because of the books. And basically, that's what these books do: is they just make you appreciate, even if it's franchises that you don't 100%, like he's done Child's Play. Phantasm is where he started, which
Phantasm
I know
Exhumed is like the Bible.
Yeah.
It's safe to say Dustin's a kindred spirit as far as his passion for the genre. And he's the one who convinced you to turn all these Icons interviews into a book.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this for a couple of years, actually. And then I think you mentioned it to Dustin, and I don't think we ever imagined we'd have a real publisher for any of this. I thought at first we were like, well, how could we do this? I think that wasn't the approach. Is how could we do this? And
it was for a couple of years that we thought about it, but really it was just timing. I talked to Dustin about it on our 20th anniversary, and that was it. It was kind of, oh, well, we have to do it. If it's your 20th, if you guys have been around for 20 years, 21 now, but it was kind of, it was birthed from our 20th anniversary and all of us reconnecting. And this has been great. I mean, to me, you guys, you feel like the band the band that could still tolerate. Like we never did our Beatles split or anything.
Right.
We still, kept in touch. We just moved to different places. But it's been a joy to hang out with you guys, to reread all these interviews again. I mean, it's been fun. It's been a trip. And we may break for now. Maybe we will be back. I think we will.
I would love to bring us back. Maybe bring somebody in here and do an Icon style interview in this format. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, once a month.
To transcribe anything.
Right.
That would be the best part about it.
Yeah. We shall see.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We hope that you had fun going down memory lane with us.
Right.
And buy the book. Icon
buy the
Fright.
book,
Check
or better yet, request it at your local library.
Please do.
Yeah.
Or do both. Buy the book and then request it at your local library.
Yeah.
Or at your local independent bookstore.
Or your local
independent bookstores.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Support your local library.
And libraries.
Support local independent bookstores, please. It's very important. Yeah.
All right.
Well, this has been great, guys.
This has been fantastic.
I'm honestly going to miss this. I'm honestly going to miss this.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
It's been very lifeline.
Yeah.
Well, you know what they say.
Let's see if we can make this happen some more.
There's got to be a sequel.
So there's got to be a sequel. Yeah, there's got to be a sequel.
Is your home library feeling a little dull? Spice it up with some scary good books from Harker Press. We've got books on your favorite franchises and filmmakers loaded with new interviews and never-before-seen photos, many of which are also available on Audible. Learn more at harkerpress.com.